everybody. We're just going to wait a few moments just to let a few more people get signed in. Great. So I think we can make a start. So we hope you've all been enjoying the Oxford MBA Experience event sessions this week. And we're pleased that you could join us today for this Q&A webinar with the admissions and the visa team. My name is David Fowler. I'm one of the senior advisors in the MBA recruitment and admissions team. And I'm really pleased to be joined this afternoon by my colleagues Charlene New and Gisela Collins from my own team, the recruitment and admissions team, and also by Joe Oldhouse and Nahid Tong from the University of Oxford student visa team. So the purpose of this interactive Q&A session is to give you, as offer holders, the opportunity to ask key questions on next steps on the admissions process, and also on the actions that you will be required to take from a student visa perspective. So we do encourage you to send through any questions that you have as we're moving through the session by dropping these into the Q&A box. Joe and Nahid are going to start the session today by sharing a few key slides on the visa application process. And so if we could ask you to, in the first half of the session, direct your questions regarding the visa application process. And in the second half, then Charlene and Gisela will take over and pick up your specific questions on the admissions process in general. So I hope that works for you. So Joe and Nahid, I think it's over to you.
Hello, I'm just explaining that I'm going to share my slides. I'm Joe, but it's actually Nahid who's going to start off the presentation. So just bear with me while I share the slides we're going to be looking at. Okay, hopefully that, Nahid, are the slides up?
Yep, I can see them.
Lovely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Joe. And thank you, David, for the introduction. And thank you to you all for attending today. So I'm Nahid Tong, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Joe. And we are your student immigration advisors for the University of Oxford. And we're here to help you to navigate through the student visa application system. So today we're going to be talking to you a little bit about the student visa application process. We do take queries by email. So if we run out of time for questions today, because I know you've got another session after hours, then please do send us a follow-up email. And we will do our best to answer your queries. And if they're non-visa related, we'll do our best to refer you on to the people who can. Okay, so we have plenty of resources available to you for your reference, including our website. And we've produced a very thorough guide, which we've written for you, and we update that regularly. So I will start us off today by talking to you about your preparation for applying for the student visa. Okay, so in order to make your application for the student visa, you need to be sponsored by the University of Oxford. And for full-time courses of more than 6 months, you'll be applying for a student visa, and that's what you need sponsorship for. And this proof of sponsorship comes in the form of a CAS. So it's worth noting that the sponsorship that I'm referring to at the moment is your academic sponsorship and not your financial sponsorship. So you need to be academically sponsored by us, and that comes in the form of a CAS. Okay, so once you've met all of your academic conditions, your CAS will be issued by the Saïd Business School. And this will have a unique number on it And that's what you need to input into your visa application. And now without this unique number, you cannot go any further on your online visa application than the CAS question. So the actual CAS itself will be sent over to the UKVI, and we send this electronically. So there's no need for you to add the actual CAS with the application, as the university will send this information over to the UKVI. And then the UKVI will match up the CAS and the CAS information and all the details on your CAS letter with the unique number that you've entered on your student application form. So just to recap, you don't need to provide the actual CAS letter with your application form, but you will need the unique CAS reference number, and the Home Office, so the UKVI, will match up the CAS number with your CAS information. Okay, so we do have an FAQs page on our website for CASs. So this is very useful for you to refer to should you have any questions about the CAS issuing process. And the link to that page is here on the slides. And I believe that the slides will be circulated after this session. So once you have got your CAS, and you can then make your student visa application. So you can make this up to 6 months before your course start date if you're applying from outside of the UK, which I'm assuming that most of you will be. Okay, so as a minimum, we advise you to allow at least 1 month before your course start date. The earlier you can make this application, the better it is, but you won't be able to make it unless you have your CAS. So you have to be academically unconditional in order to get your CAS letter and then get moving with your student visa application. Okay, so I'll now hand you over to Joe, and Joe is going to talk to you about the student visa application process.
Thanks, Nahid. Okay, so just find out how to move on the slide. Okay, so thanks. So Nahid's just told you about how you need a CAS, a confirmation of acceptance for studies, and you need to have this given to you by Said Business School before you can apply for your visa. And then once you've got your CAS, you're ready to apply for your visa, and it's an online application, as you would imagine. And you can find the application start point on the UKVI web pages. But if you go to our web pages, we've got a link which puts you onto the start point for the application. So you go through the application and you can look at our guide to the application to give you some hints and tips on answering the questions. It's really quite a straightforward process, and you really don't need to pay an agent or an advisor or anybody like that to do it for you. You can do it yourself, and if you do get stuck at all, you can email us and we can guide you through it a bit. So no need to spend extra money for specialist help for this stage. Okay, so when you filled in the questions for the application, you can change the answers you've put if you need to, up until the point where you have to start paying the fees that go along with the application. So the first fee for the application that you need to pay, that you will come to, is called the Immigration Health Surcharge. And this is going to be, it's set at £470 a year, but because your visa will be granted for more than a year, because you get extra time added into it, you will need to pay IHS for 1.5 years. So the amounts that you're going to end up paying is the equivalent of £705. This is payable in local currency. The exchange rate is always slightly unfavourable to you because the UKVI set it and they seem to add in a little bit extra for themselves. So, but it should be roughly the equivalent of £705. This will entitle you to use the UK's National Health Service while you're here during your studies, which will cover you for all health requirements that become necessary during the year. So it is it's compulsory to pay it, even if you have private insurance, but it is a good service and it's worth having. Okay, so as well as paying for the immigration health surcharge, the visa fee itself is going to be £363, and you might need to pay for your biometrics appointment as well. Some appointments are free, some are charged, so that will be an extra bit of money for that as well. Now, so those are the fees for the visa application. Once you go past paying the immigration health surcharge, you will no longer be able to change any answers on your visa application form. So just bear in mind that that is the point that locks the application. Okay, so you do need to meet financial requirements for applying for your UK visa, and the target amount that you need to be able to demonstrate for your visa application is all the fees that are shown on your confirmation of acceptance for studies. So that's the fees for the MBA, minus any part of the fees that you've already paid in advance, which has been recorded on your CAS. And then you need to be able to show an amount for living expenses. And at the moment, that's £9,207, but you can check to see whether that has changed before you make your visa application. So the total finances you need to show for the visa application are that you can cover your fees and £9,207 for your living expenses. Okay, so a lot of applicants won't actually have to send in documentary evidence for that. And that is because many countries are covered by an arrangement called the differential arrangements, which means although you are supposed to have this funding in place and be able to demonstrate it if UKVI ask you to, in fact, you are just trusted to have those funds in place, and you don't need to provide the documentation unless it's called in on a spot check. Now, you can check whether your country of nationality comes under these exemption arrangements by looking at our web pages or looking at the UKVI guide. I can just tell you, for example, that if you're a Chinese national or from the USA, then you don't have to provide financial documents unless they ask for them. But if you do have to provide the documents, you need to check very carefully that you're providing the documents that UKVI say you need to provide. Okay, these are not necessarily the same as the financial documents you provided to make your offer unconditional. UKVI have their own specific requirements, so you do need to check those and need to work out whether you need to provide a scholarship letter if you've got funded study, or a student loan letter, or your own or a parent's bank statements. Okay, there's only certain documents you can provide to fulfill this requirement. All this is covered in our guide, so don't worry if you aren't remembering all this at this point. You can check our guide, and our guide will be updated in time for next summer as well with any changes. Okay, so once you've submitted your application, you will be uploading any documents that you require online. Document requirements might be minimal because you may not have to provide any financial documents. And just for the avoidance of doubt, because you're coming to Oxford, you don't have to show any previous qualification evidence to UKVI for your visa application, because they trust Oxford, they trust Said Business School to have already checked that, and they don't need to see it themselves. So you don't need to provide that, and you don't need to provide English language test results because you've satisfied an English language requirement in the admissions process, and UKVI won't ask themselves to see any proof of that. So you don't have to upload your IELTS or anything like that. Okay, so once you've done that, you will probably need to attend a biometrics appointment. So you finish your application and then you book and attend a biometrics appointment, and then you'll need to wait for your visa decision before you travel to the UK, because it's not possible to finish the process from the UK. And if you came without your visa as a visitor, you would not be able to apply in the UK. So you do need to do that in your home country before you come. And then just to mention that you might be eligible to apply for another visa type, or you might already have another visa type for the UK. So, and some of these would allow study. For example, if you're eligible for a 2-year youth mobility visa, that only applies to certain nationalities. Some people do use this to come to the UK to study. Now, that's fine, and it might be appropriate for your situation, but a word of caution: if you're interested in applying for the graduate route after you've completed your MBA, you need to have done the MBA on a student visa to make sure you're eligible to apply for the graduate route. If you come on a different type of visa, you won't be eligible to apply for the graduate route. So that's a point to bear in mind, and I'll explain in a second what the graduate route is. Okay, so moving on. So after you've got your visa, you will get in your passport, unless you're an EU national, you will get a visa sticker. And some people are alarmed when they see this because it's only valid for 90 days. And some people panic because they think my course is a year and I've only got a visa for 90 days. But this sticker you get in your passport is actually just a travel visa. Okay, it's not the full thing. It's valid for 90 days, and obviously you'll want to arrive before the start of your course, but it does provide you with a flexible window for travel. You have to come for the first time during that 90-day period. That sticker, the start date on it can be up to 1 month before the start of your course. So when you're doing your visa application, you will say on your visa application your planned date of arrival in the UK, and that will typically be a week or so before the start of the course. And then your visa sticker will usually start 1 week before the day you say you plan to travel, but up to a maximum of 1 month before the start of your course. So then you use your passport with that visa sticker in it to travel to the UK. And then you collect a biometric residence permit from the local post office, which is conveniently situated in the centre of Oxford, just 5 or 10 minutes walk from Said Business School and close to the colleges. So that's very convenient. And this biometric residence permit gives the full duration of your visa, and you need to look after it very carefully. If you're a European national, you won't have a biometric residence permit. You'll have a fully online visa, an e-visa, so you won't have a card to collect. So what are the conditions of your student visa in the UK? Okay, so obviously it's to study in the UK and it's specific to your MBA. You can't use it for another university or another course. It's just for doing your MBA at Oxford. It does give you some work permission. Now, while you're actually studying the MBA, it's a very intensive course, and you are unlikely probably to have time to engage in employment outside your course, at least during term time. But it does give you, in visa terms, permission to work up to 20 hours a week during term time, and you can work full time during the vacations as well. Okay, so that's the work permission included in your student visa. And it's also worth pointing out that in the 4 months or so that you have included in the visa validity period after the end of your MBA, you are allowed to work full time during that period if you want to as well. Now, it does prohibit certain types of work. You are not allowed to be self-employed on a student visa. Now, being self-employed means doing a job where you're in control of your services, and you would be paying your own tax and you wouldn't be on an employer's payroll. Okay, you're not allowed to do that at all. You're only allowed to be an employee, and you're not allowed to set up and run a business while you're on a student visa. You're not allowed to engage in business. So you can obviously research businesses and you can be an employee of a business, but you're not allowed to set up and start running your own business while you are on a student visa. So that is, you do need to know that, because particularly with the nature of your course, many students start up in or are interested in starting up in entrepreneurial activity when they arrive in the UK, but you do need to wait until you've gone on to a different visa type to engage, actually run your business in the UK. Okay, so looking ahead to after you've completed studies on your MBA, if you are interested in remaining in the UK for a further period, there are various visa options, and we do give information on that, and we do talks on remaining in the UK after your studies, which you can access during the year, and Saeed sometimes invite us to talk to you as ongoing students as well. But I'll just mention here the 2-year post-study work visa, which is called the graduate route. So once you've successfully completed your MBA and your results are official, they usually come out in November, I think, for MBA students, you can apply in the UK for a graduate route visa, which gives you a 2-year flexible visa. You don't need employer sponsorship. You can work in any job on this visa, and you're also allowed to be self-employed and run and start a business if you want to in the UK as well. So that's was only introduced in 2021, but it's proved very popular, and we've had many hundreds of students apply for that already. Okay, so that's the end of the slides, and I'll just say, do use our resources for your visa application when it comes to that stage. If you get stuck, we are on hand and you can email us for help. And do have a look at our pages for ongoing information, and we will be in touch with you. And I am going to stop sharing now. And if you've got any questions, we'll now have a look at those. Okay, so.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you, Naheed. We are starting to get some questions coming through, so I'll just field a few of those and put these to you. Firstly, from Nadia Ali, when do I have to initiate the visa application? Soon after receiving the CAS or a few months prior to the course begins? Could you just clarify that, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one, Jo. Thanks, David, for that. I think that as soon as you've got your CAS, that would be the perfect time to start making your visa application. We have experienced delays to visa processing in the last few years. We're hoping that this year will not be like that, but you never can tell. So I would say as soon as you get your CAS, as soon as you're ready to apply, make your application, then don't wait. If there's nothing that you're waiting for, just do it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So the visas are said to have a 3-week turnaround time from your biometrics appointment, but our experience this year is that it is better to apply as soon as you can, as soon as you have your CAS, and you are actually allowed to apply up to 6 months before your course start date, as Naheed said in his slides. But we just say, apply as soon as you're in a position to apply, because that gives you as much time as possible to sort out any issues that come up.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Thank you. And Nadia Ali also asks, how many years visa does this program give me and my dependents? Do I have to renew the visa and the BRP for myself and my dependents for PSW later on? We may well have covered this. It is quite a confusing subject in a relatively short space of time. So if you could just re-clarify, that would be great.
Shall I do two then, Nahid?
Okay.
So the visa that students get for the MBA is about 16 months, I think, because you get until the end of the MBA, as stated on your CAS, which I think is the end of September, and you get plus 4 months. No, I think it must be November, because MBA students typically get from the September of one year to the March of the year after next. Okay, so it's your course length plus 4 months for the MBA, and then for the post-study work visa, and your dependents will get the same visa. For post-study work visa, you have to apply again before your student visa expires, and you have to apply in the UK. And then from the grant date of the post-study work visa, you will get 2 years. Okay, so I hope that answers that one. And then for how many days prior to the programme can we enter the UK? You can come up to 1 month before the start date of the MBA, as given on your CAS. So you can state on your visa application that you want to come 1 month before. You can't get visa starting earlier than that, but I do know that some students with dependents like to come a little bit earlier to get the family sorted out and the accommodation and so on. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Joe. There's also a question here about private health insurance. If we have NHS membership, as it's said here, or coverage in our time in the UK, do we also need private health insurance?
I can take this one. You don't need to take private health insurance if you're coming here on a student visa, because you'll pay your immigration health surcharge, and that will give you access to the NHS services while you're here. So you don't need to have a separate tourist medical insurance.
Can I just add something to that? I would say for some people who have got health insurance in their home countries, they do sometimes need to keep that running alongside, just to keep it going. So that's something you might want to investigate if your home country has a health insurance policy, is just see whether you need to kind of keep that ticking over, even though you're going to be in the UK over for studying the MBA.
Yeah, thank you, Gisela.
There's another question here. Hello, I'm a Chinese national and a US permanent resident. Could I apply for the visa in the USA? And during my student route visa period, can I travel outside of the UK? So a two-part question. Maybe you could just answer the first part of the question, maybe Nahid.
Yeah, so the first part of the question was, can you apply from the USA? So if you are resident in the USA, then yes, you can apply in the USA.
And then the second part, during my student route visa period, can I travel outside of the UK? Does that make sense?
Yep, you can. So your student visa is multi-entry, so you can come and go during its period of validity. Obviously, you need to be in the UK during term time and any time when you're going to be having lectures, but during the vacations, you can travel in and out. Yes, that's fine.
There's a question here about the graduate route post MBA. Somebody is saying if there are any changes in the 2-year work visa through the graduate route, how early is it shared by the UK government?
Yeah, this is always a concern. Hopefully they won't make any changes too suddenly. As far as we know, there's no plans at the moment to withdraw it, but you do need to, if that's very important to you, you do need to check the position and keep up to date on that. There have been some suggestions that it might be narrowed down to certain subjects, but we don't have any firm information. And at the moment, there's no plans to change it. So I very much hope this will still be in place for your cohort.
Can I just add to that as well, that we do send email circulars out, termly circulars out. So if there are any changes that are about to happen that we hear of first hand from the UKVI, we will put that into our circulars. So you will hear from us if there are any changes that are going to take place as soon as they're confirmed.
Just to say, please do put your questions now also regarding the admissions process. We will be moving from the visa section into more generically around admissions. So please put your questions through so we can put those to Charlene and Giza in a few moments' time. There's just another question here. This may well have been covered, Joe and Nahid, but is it possible to enter the UK as a tourist on a tourist visa before the initial date stated on the student visa?
Yeah, sometimes it is, but if you come in as a tourist, then you are a tourist until you go out and re-enter on your student visa to kind of activate it. What you can't do is come in as a tourist and then assume your student visa is going to kick in, because it doesn't. The Home Office rather arcanely insists that you enter on your student visa to activate it. If you want, and if that's something you're going to need to do and you're unsure about it, email us for advice before you do it, well in advance of you doing it, so we can make sure that you're not going to be stuck in the UK as a visitor and not allowed to study when you're meant to be here as you're on your student visa. Yeah. And what you certainly can't do is come as a visitor without a visa, for example, and then try and apply in the UK for your student visa. That won't work at all. Okay. Shall I quickly address the questions about dependents? Because, yes, yeah, okay. So you don't need a CAS for your dependents, okay? They don't need a CAS, but they do need to make the visa applications. Okay, they won't automatically be included on your visa. They need to make separate visa applications which will be linked to yours, and visa fees and IHS needs to be paid for dependents as well. Dependents are allowed to work in the UK without restrictions, so they do have work permission. Partners, okay. So partners, the partners who can apply as your dependents are married partners, formal civil partners, which can include same-sex partners. If you're unmarried and not in a formal civil partnership, you can only apply as a dependent if you've lived together for 2 years before the application, and you have to prove that you've lived together, and that can be quite demanding on the documentary side. So those are the partners who can apply. If you haven't lived together for 2 years, then your partner would only be able to come as a visitor to the UK and wouldn't have work permission. Okay.
There is one more here. Somebody just asking for re-clarification. If you could clarify once more that for the visa application, I need to be ready with all my funding documents, both for programme fee and living costs.
Yeah, so I think that before the unconditional offer is made, there'll be some investigation into your financial documents anyway. So you won't be able to have your CAS without being unconditional, without having an unconditional offer. So usually the funding is all there and ready once you've got your CAS letter, but you can always run any funding questions by us before you make your application.
Sorry, Joe, you had something else to share with us?
Oh, just on the funding side, yes, you need to demonstrate lots of funding to be accepted to Oxford University and onto the MBA. However, when you're making your visa application, you won't necessarily be able to use exactly the same documents. Firstly, because they'll need to be more up to date, and also because the university accepts wider evidence of your source of funding than UKVI do. Okay, so you have to check carefully that you're providing the right documents. If you do have to provide documents, because many students won't have to provide anything.
I'm just conscious of time.
Okay.
I think we should probably leave the visa part of this Q&A for now. I know that Need and Joe, you probably would want to leave us. I'm sure you're busy people, and then we can pick up with Gisela and Charlene and talk more specifically about the admissions process, if that works. I think if we have any other questions, I'm sure you would be very happy to receive these separately.
Yep, absolutely.
In the coming weeks and months.
Yeah. Please do email us.
Good. Okay. Thank you both. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Okay.
Thanks for having us. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
So Charlene and Gisela, participants, please do, this is your opportunity to ask broader questions about the admissions process. So please do keep your questions coming through. Charlene, would you like to kick off the process by
I will,
maybe
thank
talking
you.
About what current offer holders should be looking to do in the immediate future?
Absolutely. So first of all, just to say welcome everybody. I can see a few names of people that are in attendance that I've spoken to already. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Charlene New. I'm the MBA Admissions and Operations Manager here at the Business School. And as we said at the beginning of this webinar, I will be joined by Gisela Collins, who's also the MBA Recruitment and Admissions Senior Advisor. So between us, we can hopefully answer all of your questions. I know there's a few starting to come through. Just quickly though, where we left off, we do have a question about the kind of accepted documents to prove the funding. So I'm gonna kind of start with that, because obviously it's slightly different, but from the school point of view, in order for us to confirm your conditions and make you an unconditional offer and provide you with a CAS, you have to submit the financial declaration. So this is evidence that you have sufficient funds to cover the entire course fees. It does have an estimate of living costs, but the actual living cost itself, you are not required to send in supporting evidence for that, just for your course fee. So these can be a range of documents. It depends how you are going to fund your MBA. For instance, if it's a case that it's your own savings, personal savings, you can send us a copy of a bank statement, or some people actually ask their bank advisors to provide a short letter to confirm that you have sufficient funds to cover X amount. For those that are also maybe being jointly sponsored, not sponsored, but have family supporting or friends supporting them, we would also require a letter from that person that's providing you with the funds to confirm their relationship with you and to confirm the amount that they will be sponsoring you for. And that will also need to be accompanied with a letter from their bank or a copy of their bank statement. For those that may be sponsored by their employer, this is quite straightforward. It just has to be a letter from your employer on letterhead, confirming the sponsorship and again what they intend to sponsor you for. If you're coming through with loans, then again we need to see evidence that the loan has been confirmed and when you'll be receiving them funds. If there are any other specifics, then please reach out. Before, you will have all been sent an email with confirmation of your advisors and people that you can reach out to. So please reach out to them or myself if you're unsure, and we can always come back to you and confirm that the documents that you send are sufficient. Right, I'll move on with some of the other questions.
Yeah, Charlene, we've got a question here about scholarships, Saïd Business School Foundation scholarships. Have they been announced is the question.
Yes, I can confirm that they have been announced. However, if you're unsuccessful, you don't receive a direct email. Only those that are successful receive confirmation from our student funding team. However, there is a on the application portal, you will see that there is a funding tab as well, and our student funding team usually post notifications on that section of the portal to confirm that they have been awarded and announced for this stage. If you are unsuccessful this time round, please note that if you are still in the system and you haven't withdrawn, etc., then you will be considered again in the next consecutive round. So in stage 2, stage 3, etc., you will be considered. But there are obviously other scholarships that are available to you, which I'm sure most people have applied to, which then come later on in the year. But hopefully you would have received updates regarding or whether or not you've been moved on to the next stage of that process for that particular scholarship.
This is a question regarding colleges, which is always a very favoured topic of clarification. Do colleges prioritise MBA students when allocating on-site accommodation to graduates? And then additionally, does Nuffield College accept MBAs? Okay, so
unfortunately, Nuffield College does not accept MBAs. It's one of the very few that actually don't. So you know, there are other colleges that you can choose from, and I apologise if Nuffield is somewhere where you've got your heart set on, but unfortunately not. There's only been a very small handful of students that may have applied to the 1+1. And because of their MSc, they've studied at Nuffield, and then the college have agreed to take them on for their second MBA year, but that's not always guaranteed. So unfortunately, at this point in time, Nuffield don't accept MBAs. In terms of prioritising, I can confirm that most colleges generally prioritise their first year undergrads on-site college accommodation. A lot of the colleges have their own graduate accommodation. Sometimes that is on campus, but sometimes it's not. But they're all generally like situated around Oxford, and for those that have not kind of made it to Oxford, it's very easy to get around. Everything's very close together. And you can get around. Most people cycle, so nothing's really too far, but generally, yes, colleges do have their own graduate accommodation, which is separate from the actual kind of four walls of the college, shall I say.
And there's a question here about, I suppose, the order of how things are tackled or addressed as such. Somebody asking, should they be providing the financial declaration document, or should I pay the deposit first before accepting the offer? I think maybe some re-clarification of key next steps would be useful in this call.
Okay, so so from this point, I would suggest that the kind of between now and you deciding on whether or not you will be attending Oxford, kind of look at the colleges, look at some of the things that they can offer, or you know, kind of potential colleges that you may want to be a part of. I would suggest, obviously, by paying your deposit first. We cannot send your file for college consideration until you've confirmed your place on the programme. So for me, they both go hand in hand. So when you're ready to pay your deposit, I would also be ready to then submit the acceptance form, which then allows you to make your college preference. Once that's done, then I would advise you to send in your financial declaration. However, note, and as you could probably see on the portal, you do have time to send in your financial declaration. You do have until the end of July, so there's plenty of time for that. My recommendation, and what I would recommend is that if you're looking to get college accommodation, then most of the colleges won't put you on their list for accommodation until you've submitted the financial declaration. So if you know how you're funding your MBA and you've got everything ready, then please, you know, submit as soon as you can after paying the deposit. That way everything's in place, you're ready to go, the colleges can see. However, for those that are looking for funding options or loans, etc., that will come later, this won't hinder your chances of being admitted to a college. It's just when it's concerning the accommodation. So submit your college. You don't have to have your FD in place, but it does help when securing accommodation with the college. So for me, it's deposit, acceptance form, college preference, and then the financial declaration can come in at a later date. But note, as we've heard from the visa team, we can't provide a CAS for you until all of these things are in place and the college have granted you membership and also signed off on the financial declaration as well. So all these things do have to be done before we can provide the CAS.
And then a question which probably isn't a straightforward answer is, when can I expect to receive a confirmation regarding the college I'm in?
Okay, so that can depend. We generally say, colleges can take between up to 8 weeks really to confirm membership. However, some colleges will take a week and some can take a bit longer. So it really does vary, but I would say the average time is probably 6 to 8 weeks. For those of you obviously stage 1 candidates right now, we do have to wait at this present moment, because we do have to wait for the colleges to finish with their undergrad allocations. So if anyone's kind of on the session right now that have already paid, just please sit tight. As soon as the college confirms they're open for graduate applications, we will then send your file. It usually happens, I would say, kind of beginning of December. So hopefully we can start sending your files then. But we do, or should I say, I send your files as and when people pay their deposit. So if you paid last week and somebody else pays today, the person who's paid last week, I will send their file first. So I do send them in date order, as obviously I know a lot of people are eager to get into certain colleges and pay their deposit for that reason. So they will be sent in date order if received.
And then a question here from Lee McClellan. Lee says, can my wife and I live on campus? I'm assuming you mean thereby in college. Are there living arrangements that are specifically pet friendly?
That's a difficult, well, it's not difficult, but unfortunately, I haven't come across college accommodation that accept pets, unfortunately. Most of our students that bring their pets do find alternative accommodation through private resource. So yes, it can be quite difficult, but what I would say is if that's what you're planning on doing, reach out to members of the team, and then maybe we can put you in touch with other students that have come with pets, because what I've seen in the last couple of years anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, Gisela, is that they tend to swap exchange landlords. So once one kind of family with a pet or individual with a pet, they tend to stay in the same accommodation because the current students that are there speak to their landlord, and so it's like an ongoing. So that is, we can put you in touch with the students that are already living here with pets to make that easier, but unfortunately you won't get that within college accommodation.
Yeah, I would say the only college accommodation for pets would be for assistance animals.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And then looping back towards scholarships, again, some clarification on scholarships such as Laidlaw, Weidenfeld, Hoffman. They will be finalised by what date, what month? Again, if you could possibly just clarify timings with regard to those.
Yeah, so it is later in the year. However, as I said, for the Weidenfeld and Laidlaw, you should have received confirmation already on whether or not your application is being taken forward to the next round. So all applicants will be reviewed again after stage 2 decisions, and then you'll be notified again if you've gone through to the next round. And so I think usually they hope to have them out kind of in kind of March, April time, I believe. So what they wait, and at the end of stage 3 is when they will make their kind of final decisions. So it is a bit of a long wait for those of you that you know, have just received an offer in stage 1. But you know, if there's any concerns in terms of well, I can't pay my deposit because I'm reliant on one of these scholarships, do let us know, because if you have been taken forward to the next round, we will also extend your deposit into the next round as well. We do know that a lot of students do rely on some of these scholarships, so we'll try and help as much as we can.
We are getting towards the end of our questions today. There's just one more that's just popped in. So in that case, would I be able to share my financial declaration? I'm not sure what's meant by that. Is it when would I be able to share? It's possibly around timing, I think.
If it's to do with the scholarships, then obviously and you know, unless you have the funds to you know, support yourself without scholarships, then I would say you can submit your financial declaration, and then if you are awarded a scholarship at a later date, we can then rectify that financial declaration form for you and include any extra documentation in that. If it's the case where you are reliant on a scholarship, then obviously you just can't submit your financial declaration. You will have to wait until the results come out.
With just a few moments left, I wonder if there are other key points or things that you feel would be useful to stress to people before we if not, then that's fine, and we can end the webinar. But are there some other good pieces of advice that either of you would like to share?
Let's see. I mean, I personally, you know, any concerns or questions or anything that you're unsure about, reach out to your advisor. There's nothing worse than kind of leaving something to the last minute or not understanding and then doing something kind of wrong. There's lots of resources, you know, across the universities. We say you've got the visa team, there's different welfare teams, there's the recruitment and admissions team. So just do reach out if you're unsure about anything. Me personally, colleges is a big thing, I think. I'm not sure if Giza would agree, but I know a lot of people that actually spend a lot of time. The spreadsheets have come out, there's like detailed upon detail of different colleges, and people end up driving themselves crazy because they're unsure of which college to go to. They are all great, they are all amazing. The ones that you can choose as an MBA, you know, you'll have a wonderful time whichever one you go to. Any alum will tell you that their college was the best. That's because that's where they spent their year. So I personally wouldn't get too caught up in wanting to know what the right decision was in terms of which college. Just look at a few key aspects. You know, do you want to be in a graduate college or a mixed kind of undergrad and graduate college? Would you prefer kind of a more modern college to, you know, a very historic college? There are many reasons why people choose, and I've heard over the years of why they want to go to certain colleges, but maybe look at that. And maybe if you're into sports, you can also look at some of the kind of league tables and choose a college which is kind of high up on the league table if it comes to, I don't know, football or rugby or anything like that. So just remember that all of your academics is at the business school, and your kind of college life is there for kind of networking, social activity. So yeah, I would just not spend an awful amount of time on kind of choosing the right college, because they are all right colleges. Otherwise, we wouldn't allow you to pick one as part of the MBA. Okay. Is there any comments from you?
I know I've been very quiet all the way through. I suppose just to clarify for people as well, that they only get the one college choice.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if their file is unsuccessful at that college, then it goes into an automated allocation system. So to study at Oxford, you have to have a college, you know, and yeah. So if the college decided not to take your file for whatever reason, it'll go into the allocation system and you will be allocated to a college. And this can be any of them really. So some people have ended up somewhere they probably might not have thought they would necessarily have got into. But it can take a little bit of a while. So just keep in touch with us, you know, if that's the case. And Charlene will always inform you once she knows whether your file has been returned and gone into the allocation system. So you will be kept up to date with that.
Just to jump on top of that as well, because we've just had a question regarding where candidates tend to end up if they don't get their first choice. And I have this conversation a lot, and people do automatically assume that we kind of what everyone goes to Green Templeton, for instance, because it takes up to 70 MBAs. I have to confirm that Green Templeton is one of the quickest colleges as well to fill up. And so we don't really get a say in where you go for the next college. It's a case of the colleges will have the ability to look at everyone's application and make an offer where they see fit. So it could be anywhere. We've had people that I don't know, have ended up at colleges which are very popular among most students, which is Balliol or Merton or St John's. You know, so it's really random, and you really could be anywhere. That there's no kind of logic behind it, and unfortunately no negotiation from our side. It's completely out of our hands. So yes. One more, sorry, I know we're running out of time, David, and I do apologise, but just really quickly, because we do have a couple of questions based on the scholarships again, on whether or not people kind of their chances kind of later on in the rounds. The chances are there, guys, I have to say. You know, we've had people in stage 1 that actually get a scholarship in stage 3, so it's completely possible. Obviously, as we go through the rounds, you know, some of our stages are bigger than others. So for instance, stage 3 is usually very big for us. So, you know, there is more competition, that, you know, the pool of applicants becomes very competitive with scholarships, but it does happen. So I wouldn't completely give up. It is there, and you know, if the committee, the scholarship committee, see that you're better suited than other candidates, then you know, they'll make you the offer.
Good. Thanks, Gisela. Thanks, Charlene. So we have come to the end of our webinar today. We hope you found it helpful as you take up your offers in the next few weeks and then continue to work through the key next steps beyond that. I know you'll want to thank me in thanking Charlene, Gisela, Joe and Nahid for their time today. If you have further questions that we weren't able to cover, then please send these through. I've dropped the Oxford MBA email address into the chat box, and then we can ensure that these get shared with the right person. So tomorrow is the last day of the MBA experience event, when we hope you will join us for 3 further sessions. First up at 1 p.m. UK time, there will be a careers workshop led by my colleague Dan Kiernan from the careers team, who will be focusing on preparing you for the MBA and the post-MBA period too. This will be followed at 2:30, when we'll be hearing from some of our fantastic Oxford MBA alumni, who will be sharing their key experiences and insights of their time on the programme. And then finally at 4 p.m, we will wrap up with a networking session, when you will have the opportunity to hear from and connect with a wider group of stakeholders in the school and learn more about their work. So if you haven't already done so, then please do register for these events and take advantage of these sessions too. So finally, thanks again for your participation today, and we all wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.